about content crises from other webinars or presentations. So here are 3 quick problems that we often face from content management systems. One is to find where is the content. We need to find where the content is, who has it, and find it at the right time. So the Sitecore Content Hub provides us a mechanism to collaborate with the teams, and we can manage the content, track it using a workflow. We'll take a look at it, how that can be achieved. Also, it is often seen that the team works in silos and they have disjoint systems, their own way of creating content. So using Content Hub, as I mentioned, it is a unified platform, and we can manage the complete life cycle of the content, and it integrates seamlessly with external channels. We have access to APIs. We can publish the content to Sitecore or Twitter or LinkedIn, etc. And the workflows also, it offers multiple types of workflows. One is, say, we are creating assets. So asset is nothing but an image or a video or any type of content that we would like to publish. So we can have creation and approval workflows. We can have content management workflows, say ideation workflow. We want to create a campaign. And some team members have certain ideas what can be included in the campaign. So there can be ideation workflows, or there can be state flows, simply tracking the state of the content and having it approved. So having the content, collaborating it, creating it, managing, publishing is all great. The best use of that is to know the impact of the content, right? How useful and impactful that content is. So we will take a look at how to track the content impact. So here is a quick slide, and the definition about Sitecore Content Hub helps you manage every aspect of the marketing content in a single integrated solution. So this is the definition from Content Hub's website. That's the URL up there. And in today's demo, we will take a look at importing the content into Content Hub, managing and publishing it to a blog site, and tracking the impact of the content. So this is how we will do it. We will import some assets, and asset, as I mentioned, can be images, videos, etc. And assets can have metadata associated to them. So metadata is like a name, title, description, other properties like a DRM as far as the publishing content restriction, who has access to it, or any other custom attribute that you would like to associate to an asset. And we have an option to individually upload an asset, or we can bulk upload them using Excel import. We will import the asset into the content hub here, and we'll try use imported asset into the blog content. And then we'll publish that blog to a blog site, and we'll try to track the impact of that. So that was the quick overview of what we will try to achieve, and with that we'll jump into the demo. So going back, so this is the home page of the Content Hub. This is customizable, and I will not go deep into the different aspects of the every menu up here, but we will focus on first creating the assets. So existing assets can be accessed from this menu right here. And since we want to create new content right now, let us go and try creating content right here. So right now there is a way to upload an individual file from here, or we can just drag and drop the files, but we will try to import multiple assets at once. So with that, I have a sample Excel file. And before we actually try and import multiple assets into, there is a lot of analysis and requirement gathering may be required, because importing assets is relatively a simple task, but mapping the attributes for each asset that users would like to use, how they would like to use it, can require some analysis. So this is a very simple Excel upload file where all these URLs are publicly available images that we will just try to import into Content Hub. So let me just click a couple of them quickly. So this is one of the image for Cleveland skyline, and here is one more from some Baltimore County. So these assets we will try to import into Content Hub. It has title, description, asset type, content security, source of the asset, and these can be all custom attributes. This life cycle status of the asset. The assets, when they are imported, they are in created status, and we can have them under review or directly approved. And there is something here under DRM. So we will take a look at these attributes first before we actually import these assets into Site Content Hub. So if we go back to Content Hub, and we cancel out of here, and the entire schema for assets and other content types can be is accessible from this manage page. Under there is a schema section, and we can just search for assets, and the entire schema for the assets is available here, and we can create our own attributes or use existing attributes, make sure whatever the attributes that we are using in Excel file match with the schema, the attribute name in the schema. Just a quick look at, so all these attributes that we saw in Excel file are already created under asset. There are some tricks to remember, and I think this will be useful. So for example, digital right management. So we would like, say, certain asset to be available to certain geographical area, and we would like to control the rights. So that can be achieved by going under DRM contracts and creating the rights profiles. So I have already created, we can create a new contract just by clicking this button. I have already created a contract right here, and it has two rights profiles, Ohio assets and Maryland assets, let's say. So I would like to import certain assets under Ohio so that I can use those assets for Ohio related campaigns or for another geographical area. And if I were to go deeper into this right now, there are no assets linked to that rights profile. So in order to link the correct assets to the correct rights profile, there is a trick here. If we go under entities, again from the manage section, we can access entities. And entities, everything in Content Hub is an entity. An asset is an entity, a blog is an entity. So whatever items we create is an entity. If we go under rights profiles and try to say, so these are the Ohio assets entity. And if we go under the technical, so this is the identifier for Ohio assets. This identifier needs to be set under DRM. So these are some of the things that we need to know, and they are not too difficult, but essential. How these attributes are stored, they are qualified with full namespace, if you will, etc. So some of the assets we are uploading for Ohio, others are for Maryland. And then we are setting some of the assets as posters and logos, and some have content security as restricted, some are internal, some have unrestricted use allowed. And I'm setting asset source for all of them just to user group repository. You can have it like legacy assets or web related assets or any asset source that you would like to set. And these values can be accessed from the taxonomy. So if we go under, say, taxonomy and try to find asset source, so we can define our own asset source here. And whatever the asset source that we define, we need to just grab the identifier and put it in Excel file. So with that, let's go and try import our assets. I will go under create and import the Excel file. And this is my Excel. So the job should run pretty quickly. And Content Hub tries to optimize the import. It first uploads the metadata for the assets, and then tries to actually get the images or whatever the media behind it. And then it also runs the any cognitive services that are associated with the asset. So we can track the actual content and associate the tags for each asset. So we have a few assets uploaded here, and the images will come. We first have the metadata uploaded. So if I were to just click, say, one of the image here, as we can see, we have all the metadata imported, and the image will come in pretty quickly. We have the asset source here, and if we go back to our DRM contracts, so let's say under assets, we have some assets already linked to the DRM rights profiles. So with since now that we have the assets created, let us submit them for approval. So this is one of the first workflows that is out of the box, comes with Content Hub. So submit assets, yes, and then we can go and review. A reviewer may send it back, or they may make some changes right here and then approve the assets. All right, so let us just approve them. And so not sure if we got all of them. Okay, so let us go to our assets section. And under user group repository, now that we have all approved assets right here, imported from a public location. So this is something you need to remember, that your assets need to be available at a publicly available URL. And then we can quickly import a bunch of assets with all of its metadata, associate the rights profiles, and also possibly associate the tags and other attributes, and also create the renditions, like multiple renditions can be created for each asset. So real quick, we can take a look at the image media processing when an asset is uploaded. We can look under content and image. This workflow gets triggered, and then it gets the metadata, imports it all in. It creates a PDF file for the asset, and then it can create multiple renditions. And we can have our own renditions again created here. In addition, we can have the cognitive services run and automatically detect the vision, detect the tags for assets. So it is great now that we have the assets into the system. Again, these are some of the out-of-the-box features that we can have, use these facets and filter it, and multi-edit and things like those. So we will not go into all those details. That we have all these assets into Content Hub, we would really like to make use of them and publish them somewhere. So in order to publish a particular asset, we can directly consume this asset from, say, Sitecore. From Sitecore, if we have a connector installed, Sitecore DAM connector, or another way is to create the content for the asset. So let us say we can create campaigns, and a campaign is nothing but a collection of certain types of blog content types. So I have already created one blog and one social media post. So we can create different types of content. For example, these are some of the out-of-the-box content types that Content Hub makes us available. We can create our own content types, associate attributes to each of these content types. So let us just try creating a blog, for example. And we will, let me go back, get the text for the blog. So let us give it a name. And create it. So we have a demo blog ready. We can now, the stub of it is ready, and we can fill in the details here. So very simply, we can just create some blog in here, give some name, and this is just some information I copied from our user group meetings. On Meetup. So let us see. So let us say we want to create this user group related blog and then want to publish it to our blog site, right? We can even include the images into it. So I can go and pick some assets. Let us say, let me pick one of the already selected Baltimore Cleveland user group asset. So this is the image. This is the public URL for the image. Let me select it. And now we have the content for the blog ready. We can add some details to it. For example, we would like to know where to publish this blog. So we can have it published to, say, Sitecore and our own website. These are the channels that we would like to publish it to. And let us save it. So now that blog is ready, and we would like to have it reviewed, send it through the workflow, and then publish it. So this is the workflow. Now, as you can see, this is the custom workflow or state flow that is associated with this content type. It will go through these steps. It is in draft right now, in progress. Once we start the workflow, it can be reviewed and approved, and then it will be ready to be published. So I can show you how to set up the state flows and associate it to the content type, etc. But let us first complete this workflow. Since I have logged in as an administrator, I can just complete all of these steps. So I will start the workflow and approve it myself. Send it for review, and let me approve it. And so at the click of this publish, I would like this blog to be available on my own website. So I have a dummy website created. This is a simple Blazor site of a fictitious company. Let me just refresh this page of Contraso Corp. It already has a couple of blogs published on this, and I would like to publish the blog to this website. I have a connector, local connector right now running. So let me just kick that off. And instead of having it run locally, I can just have a Logic app or some other sort of connector running in Azure that can pull the Azure Service Bus. So I can go into the details of technical details how this is achieved. So right now, this program, Fetch Blog, continuously polls my Azure Service Bus. Let me show you the service bus here. So this service bus is running, and as soon as the message is received onto this under a particular topic, under the subscription, I have set up a block subscription. As soon as the message is received, it will be captured by this connector, and it will update the block site. That message is sent to the service bus using the trigger from Content Hub. So now let me try publish this. Okay, confirm it and give it a second. And we should receive the message. All right, there is a message received here. So our connector should capture it soon. All right, so demo works, hopefully. Let me just try save this again. Well, all right, so we got the message here. So this is the message we received as, let me just continue for now, and the blog ID. See, 16812, this is the blog ID, and the message that we received is from the Azure Service Bus. If you would like to see the message. So this is the save entity message. It has simple M content and the target ID, and that is what I am trying to capture in the blog ID and populate the blog. So let us just continue. And since I saved it again, let me just close this for now. Let us go back to our blog site, and if I were to refresh this, there it is. So we have a blog published to our blog site. If I were to go into this, and this is the content that we had just published with the all text and images and everything. So now we have integration from directly from Content Hub to any of the external sites. And if I did not show this to you earlier, but I have a local Sitecore instance running, and if I were to drill into my CMP, we have, is this the one? So this is the blog that is published to my local Sitecore instance as well via Sitecore connector for Content Hub. So we have assets created, imported into Content Hub. We created a blog content type. We used that asset into the blog and published it to an external site. So this is all great. Let me explain this to you a little while. But so this is all great that we have a blog and it is all published in an external site. But it is only useful if it reaches as many number of people as possible. So we would like to make it reach more people and also make it available from, say, social media channels so that people can directly land onto our blog site. And we would like to track the impact of that and how that can be achieved. So I have already created one social media post here, and it links. So this post, let me, all right. So let us just create one social media post. What we will try to do is create a social media post, post it onto LinkedIn, and make the blog link available on the social media channels. So we can again go in here and create a content of type social media. So give it some name, give some tags, and the blog URL. So we would like to give the blog ID of this, and this is our campaign ID. Let us just save this. Let us add an image as well. We do not want to upload. We would like to link an existing. So let us link the same image. And let us publish it to some LinkedIn and Twitter. And save this. And let us quickly approve it and publish it. So all right, so it is now published. Now it should, in theory, appear on my LinkedIn site here. So let us try refresh it. It may take a second. So this goes through a logic app, and let us take a look at the status of the logic app. So it is still running. All right, so there is the social media post published to our LinkedIn with the link and also all the content that we had put in our social media post. And if I were to click, so now before I click on this link, let me show you how we track the content. So every content that we create in Content Hub, it is possible to have usage entities associated to it. So this was the blog that we published. If I go back in here and go into the usage, and now we see multiple channel accounts here since I clicked save multiple times and I have set up the trigger only so that these usage entities are created when every time I save for demo purposes. But we do not want these duplicate ones. So let us remove the LinkedIn duplicate things here. So these usage entities are associated with the blog content. And if we were to take a look at, say, one of this matrix is associated with the usage entity. And the matrix can be the number of clicks, mentions, likes, or whatever we would like. This can be all customized. These are all customizable. And we can give the weightage to each of these metrics. So let us say if I were to give 5 points for every click and I say I got 2 clicks and I save this, then the trigger will then the script that runs behind it will update the impact of it. Or I gave 10 points, so now we have 20 as the impact for this blog content. And if I were to go back up here, all the content that is available inside this campaign, the total impact of this campaign is also right now 20. So if I were to now click from this link, what I'm doing is from an external URL, I am updating the content impact by giving some campaign ID and the block for which the impact needs to be computed. So if I were to just and try go back in here and so the usage that are associated with this metrics, we do not want to have the, all right, I had deleted the wrong ones, but I think the usage entities, we do not want to manually set the values here because that can be very tedious. But as users visit our external content, these are now updated automatically from external source, and we can track the impact of our content. So if I were to just again go back in here and try refresh it a few times. So let's go back in and see how is our impact for this. Okay, so it is for some reason. Okay, So we have, so the idea is to be able to capture the impact of a content type from external source, and the impact for all of these content types is consolidated to the campaign. So we looked at, going back to the slides, we looked at we imported assets into Content Hub. We created the blog content. We uploaded it to the blog site, and we try to gauge the impact for the content. We also have the blog published, and this was done using a trigger which published the message to the Azure Service Bus, and we had a connector for the corporate blog site which published the blog to the blog site. And we had the social media content, again published to Twitter and LinkedIn, actually. So this is a quick summary of what all we did. Again, imported assets, content created, published to multiple channels, and we tracked the content impact. And but this is just to give an idea, different possibilities that are possible with the Content Hub. It is not just about storing and collaborating about the content, but it can integrate with external channels as well. And that's all I have. If there are any questions, comments, I'll be glad to answer them. Okay, thank you.
That was awesome. Thanks, Pushkar.
Okay, thanks.
Any questions from anyone? Okay. I will.
Oh, I have a question. I didn't realize where my mute button was.
Okay.
Sorry. So I used the Microsoft Teams. So my question is, and this, you might have covered this before I was able to join. So how did you get your experience with Content Hub? Was it working on a project? Is it just kind of learning about it to learn about it? I'm just kind of curious about how that all came to be.
Learning on it, and also working on some POCs, and working with some customers, but not on the projects.
Cool, thank you. I'm just curious. I guess what I'm curious about is just to see what level of uptake we've seen amongst traditional Sitecore customers for getting interested in it, and specifically, what are the good ways to kind of pitch it to people who might not realize they need it?
Right. And so I think it will be good to show them the possibilities, and not just about how to collaborate about the content and store it, but it offers additional possibilities like creating campaigns, DRM, projects. There are many things we did not discuss, the creating and tracking the MRM, the resource management piece of it. And also it is very interesting, I think, how it integrates. If we have some C# or Web API development experience, then the possibilities are tremendous.
Ed, can I just jump? I'm just going to jump in for a second here. One of the things that I've noticed with customers is that they're always trying to compare it to another DAM, and the big thing to let them know is that with the traditional DAM, you just have content editors going in there. With the enterprise version of Content Hub, you actually have everybody who needs to upload content can get in there. So your photographers are getting in there, and any of your external agencies are getting in there. And so you're reducing the number of steps that people have to take. And that's one of the big optimizations that is a big selling point, is that you don't have all these people uploading and downloading and processing files. It's all being done in one spot. And the media processing piece of it will actually do cutting of all those different images into the different sizes that you want. Plus, public links as opposed to downloading an image is huge. A lot of DAMs will want you to download the image. With Content Hub, you can actually have it automatically put the various size ones in the CDN. And so if you change it, it drops the cache and updates them all rather than you having to send them out to everybody. So those are two big things that I've run into when I've been talking to customers. I tell them those two things and they're really, really happy.
That's cool. Yeah, and that's kind of why I'm curious to hear about stuff like this, because having been doing web content management for a long time, it's just kind of a corner of the world that I feel like I just have a lot more to learn about what's an important product differentiator, what are the what do customer needs tend to be like, stuff like that. So thank you.
And one quick note, I did not discuss a whole lot about the technical side of it, how it was implemented, the service bus and the block site updates, etc., and the connector to Sitecore. So if you are interested in all those technical details, you are most welcome to contact us and join us if you can in Sitecore Symposium.
Any other questions? All right, we'll pass it over to Jason and talk about Sitecore 10.
Sure thing. Let me just get that screen share going here. Screen two. Alrighty. So, hello everybody. Thanks, Pushkar, for such a good Content Hub presentation. I love the plug for Symposium at the end. You're making the marketing team's job a lot easier. Today, I was very honored to be invited to talk about Sitecore 10 and kind of what's new. I've been talking to a lot of folks about Sitecore 10 and kind of what's in, putting out blogs and videos and things like that. So for this, I think what's most interesting to me is what are the questions you have? And so I'm going to see if we can like run through the highlights like super fast mode and kind of get into the areas that you're interested in seeing. So the first thing that I'd like to say is, hi, my name's Jason. I like to write code sometimes, but more often than not, I write PowerPoint right now. I lead a team of technical evangelists, and our role is very much to get people excited about stuff and help out where we can and see what we can do in the community. I see a lot of faces today that I've known throughout the years, and good to meet some new folks too. One of the things that today I want to look at is what was kind of the theme of Sitecore 10. I got all the stuff from the product team, we changed this, we changed that, and looking at it, there was kind of a theme of efficiency, of trying to get marketing and IT to have a way to work together at the speed that each one wants to work at. So I think a lot of the things that we looked at when trying to figure out, okay, what's important, what's not, fell into that realm of trying to make things more efficient, easier to work with. A lot of the times we find, marketing learns something in the field, they have to react. How do we get IT to be able to respond really quickly? How do we get into that continuous delivery flow, right? Anybody here who's on the tech side who's been talking DevOps for a while knows like breaking down that culture in the organization, getting to a continuous transformation, continuous delivery mode. It's not easy. So how do we go about doing that? And I think in Sitecore 10, I'll admit that the heavy lifting, probably all the fancy bells and whistles, was probably on the tech side. And it's been a while since we had one of those like big tech releases. It was probably, I'm thinking back to my partner days when Sitecore 7 came out, and we were all excited about all the new indexing possibilities and things like that. This has got a bunch of new things for technical teams to take a look at. Fundamentally, Sitecore has been a lot about delivery flexibility over the years. And we heard a lot of feedback though, like, when are you going to get around to supporting containers? And how come only the front end guys get to do that headless development? When can my .NET team take advantage? And when are you finally going to get on ASP.NET Core? Another thing that we've seen in the community a lot was, people, do they use TDS? Do they home roll their own serialization? Do they use Unicorn? Better serialization tooling coming from Sitecore. So I think the first one we addressed was containers. Docker, Kubernetes, Sitecore provided images. That was a way that we could go about getting into that continuous delivery model, meeting teams where they wanted to do infrastructure as code, and get more efficient at bringing team members on board. So making it easy for teams to share what the environment was supposed to be. And from an ASP.NET Core and headless perspective, the new ASP.NET Core rendering SDK kind of took all the things we learned about JSS and brings that over to a back-end development perspective to get that lightweight development piece. And then we looked at that content serialization. How do we automate content through the environments? And that's where Sitecore CLI and the Sitecore for Visual Studio tools, they kind of allowed those teams to better have options for developers to work the way they want. So if we start off on the container side, why are we doing this? Why is containers important? And if you've been doing development with virtual machines or local installations, I think moving to a Docker-driven development and infrastructure flow is really going to benefit you, because I think it addresses 4 kind of big areas. One, TCO. We're all about reducing costs, right? And onboarding more efficiently, delivering faster, having fewer moments of like, how do I get this started? Secondly, we want to deliver faster as teams. So we want to take advantage of the efficiencies that we have with Docker, bringing people together, sharing what it is that we need to do. There's also a lot of system requirements, but whether it's SQL Server, Solr, or Redis, or whatever you have, all these pieces that go into standing up a local development installation, or even in production. How do we make it easier so the developers know what they have to have, especially when you're switching between versions? Maybe you're on 10.0 here, this project's on 10.1, what Solr versions, what SQL Server do I have to run, what OS? Containers allow us to isolate that and make it easier. And we also have some better tooling now for ops teams, because you can start using all that new monitoring and security tools that are out there built around a container infrastructure. And so now you can use that industry standard technology in your Sitecore environment. I also feel that as we move towards this containerized approach, we're going to see teams trying to get to that continuous delivery ideal, trying to get DevOps as a culture, breaking down all the walls amongst teams. And look, I know tech's not going to solve that problem. That's a people problem. But Docker and Kubernetes are built around that flow. They assume that's how you work. So it gives your team an ability to make that change, a transformation, a little bit easier, have some industry standard tooling that's built around that. Now, if we talk about, headless now. So containers was one thing. Now, if we talk about the headless developer option we added. So this came about, a lot of feedback that we learned from customers and devs and partners implementing JSS. We made JSS better, but how do we get backend developers to get the same benefits? So the server side of things became the headless services. And now we have a new client, the ASP.NET Core rendering SDK. So now you can choose your front end flavor or go with ASP.NET Core. And the really big benefit we're seeing as teams is they can rapidly do your presentation layer. You're not deploying to Sitecore. You're able to work on your ASP.NET Core locally, really fast debugging, fixing up your presentation. It also lets you, when you're trying to keep your team happy and bring in new people, if somebody wants to work on the latest .NET, that's a way to give them an in and a way to get them, excited about what they're working on. Some teams are also going to have already rolled out .NET Core applications. So I'm thinking about if you're doing any kind of major transactional sites, maybe you have stuff that's not running on Sitecore. The way of working headlessly allows you to bring Sitecore in where you need it. And so it gives a lot more of like a native integration feel with your ASP.NET Core. So I think that's going to be a really big benefit as well to a lot of teams. Now, if we combine that, the whole idea of working with containerized stuff locally, trying to bring in this headless option, I think we're going to see developers able to work in a more production-like way. So you can start spinning up this kind of Sitecore infrastructure really quickly that looks kind of like a production. What I'm showing here is what we use on our team for building out the MVP site. So CMCD, very basic, XM topology. And this is all very lightweight, very small containers that can just run what they need. Then we add on the headless piece. So this just talks to Sitecore, but we can go and we're doing our development changes really quickly just there. We don't even touch Sitecore until we need to add in some kind of extra layer to pass on like lists of content or something like that that's customized. But for the most part, when I'm making my changes, it's right there in the headless end. And then we have this new traffic proxy. So when you first get started in Sitecore 10, you're going to see this pop up and you're going to be like, what is this? And it kind of, this is a reverse proxy that makes it easier for your browser requests to figure out where the containers are. It knows it's going to help when you have multiple projects and things like that. What's the container that has to get loaded up? So this is a nice, handy little addition. Now, if we move along to the other developer pillar I talked about, that was content serialization. And we were trying to figure out how do we get the best of TDS and Unicorn together? Like, how do we get this and make it easier to script content and move it between environments? So the new serialization that we introduced in 10.0 has a couple ways of doing this. You got the CLI, so a command line interface. So for people who love working on the command line, it wasn't me, I'm more of a GUI guy, but I tried this out and it was really easy to use, really fast to get my content pushed in and out. And our team was able to do a lot of automation with it. Now the other option is Sitecore for Visual Studio. So you want to work in Visual Studio, you want to have a plugin, work where you were working there. The thing that I really loved about this was that they're both doing the same thing. They have the same functionality. They have the same kind of underlying working. So you can have different members of the team working the way they want. So you have one developer who wants to work with CLI, one developer who wants to work with the GUI. Not fighting tools, you can just work together. So I thought that was pretty cool that we did this in 10. Now there was a whole bunch of stuff that went under the hood. So I've got this slide that's like mega stuff all across, but a lot of it fell under making stuff go faster and making you find things that are issues faster. So monitoring, observability, performance. These are the things that we saw, like just trying to add more like lazy loading, more things where only using connections to other systems if it's actually necessary, trying to make things like the session state just go way faster. And from a monitoring perspective, I think the really cool one I liked is the application map for the XConnect services. A lot of folks really wanted that, to be able to write in Azure, see it in the application map and really monitor it. So all of this is all about reducing that total cost of ownership, right? How do I make things run faster on the same infrastructure? How do I figure out bugs faster, figure out what the issue is, resolve it quicker? So that's kind of addressing that theme again. Now here's where I want to walk real quick through what happened on the marketing side, because there were things that happened for content strategy and also for digital marketing. And I think the theme for here was very much around how do we make stuff easier to change. So Horizon, we had that kind of come out public in the Sitecore 9 series, but we needed to add more use cases in, make people able to handle things like multilingual, multi-site. And how do we get better integration with Salesforce Marketing Cloud or have better analytics? Like the audience analytics filters are pretty cool. And data privacy, it's not going away. We did a bunch of stuff in Sitecore 9, but we needed to have more consent choices, more ability to do anonymization of personal data. So that was another thing that we added in here. And we'll drill into some of those details. I think one of the ones that I want to talk about is the personalization on a CMS install. So when you're on CMS only, there are certain types of personalization you want to do. And maybe you're on your beginning of your personalization journey. You're not ready for the full XP infrastructure. You want to have something lightweight, get it up and running, try out some device or session state-based stuff. So that was, I think, a really nice addition here to bring that kind of style back, which we didn't have in the Sitecore 9. You had to like install the full XP, start disabling a bunch of stuff. So I think this met with a lot of demand that we had from the 9 series. I mentioned Horizon, and the big one was switching sites, switching multilingual. That wasn't there in the previous version. So this is going to open up a lot more use cases for people who are running that type of thing. And that includes SXA sites. Now, SXA got a bunch of new support, in terms of better field type support, being able to do the site-specific images that you're used to in SXA. But we're going to see better integration with SXA as we go throughout. I don't think we've hit all the SXA use cases yet in the 10.0. So I expect to see this over the course of the 10 series get better and better and better. Now, another thing is Content Hub. We just had a great presentation on doing Content Hub. Getting that tighter integration there was really necessary with Horizon as well. How do we pull in those DAM assets when you're editing here and not make you have to switch over to Experience Editor and start making the edits there? So this allows for a little better marketing flow between people in Horizon and people who are using Content Hub. And something that is in the screenshot here is a field editor. So we have this ability to go from the WYSIWYG now over to a content view, all in the same UX. So you kind of switch over. That lets you get at things like metadata or more of like traditional headless content that's not necessarily a page. And this is, again, how do we, make more use cases available to the authors when they're in Horizon. On the Content Hub, following that up, what we're seeing with folks who are getting into Content Hub is that they're using CMP for content modeling. They want to do this so that the content can be used across all their channels. And in that model, like the experience platform, their website is just one channel, one way that they're getting out. They might have print, they might have, ads that they're putting up on at the airport or something like that, right? And they want this content to be consistent. And so more work was done to kind of make sure that as an author, you can work in Content Hub, develop all your models, put it all together, and then have that flow better into Sitecore Experience Platform, keeping more of the taxonomy, having more field types supported, just a little change, able to make a lot more use cases open up. And on the privacy front, there was a lot done in 9 around right to be forgotten, especially on the XConnect data stuff with XDB. But a lot of teams are going beyond that now, right? Sitecore Forms was a place where it wasn't as easy to anonymize. So now there's the API calls are in there, so you can, redact submission values, get rid of the association to XDB contacts, delete any files they might have uploaded. And this allows you to still see all the reporting data, but it's anonymized now. So that's a nice little change that I think was helpful for those doing data privacy. A big one, though, was the right to object. And this is all about consent management. Everybody's seen those pop-ups we get when you go to the site. It's like, are you going to accept the cookies here? This is what we're doing. Everyone's kind of hand rolling it. And we felt like there was something more could come from the platform. So you can store now, did someone consent, write an XDB. And there's settings now that will disable the tracker right away if those consent settings are off. So there's more out of the box. And you can even make that disabling site specific. So you might have one site that has to meet it, but another site doesn't. So you can kind of control that a little more granular and build atop a more common base. Now, another piece that I just want to cover before we go to questions was, hey, what about Salesforce Marketing Cloud, right? People love using best of breed tools. Not everybody is doing everything in Sitecore. So organizations that have Salesforce Marketing Cloud were wondering, well, I want to react more quickly. We had an integration that kind of did a regular connection over, send data in batch, and then you could leverage that in Salesforce Marketing Cloud. But what was done in 10 is a more real-time integration, specifically about marketing automation with Journey Builder. So now, in Sitecore Marketing Automation, you have a new action available. That lets you configure, hey, if you get here, go send them into this plan in Journey Builder over in Salesforce Marketing Cloud right now. Here's all their data. So you can react right away in real time in the tool that you're using based on what's happening in Sitecore. So you're not waiting for a nightly batch or anything like that. So that's going to allow for a lot quicker response and better overall engagement across channels for marketing teams. So I think that was a pretty neat thing that was in here too. Now, as I said, the thing I really wanted to get to was, what are the questions? What is it that you want to know about Sitecore 10? If you want to get into more depth about what's in 10, I've got a blog on jasonstcyr.com that you can go to. I've got deep dives in there. I've got videos. I've got links to all kinds of stuff that's out in the community. I don't think I found it all. A lot of people have been writing about it, but you can go there and kind of drill into more about what's been in 10. But I'd love to open the floor and see what's going on. What are people thinking? So thank you.
Awesome, thanks, Jason. There is a question in the chat that says, how does traffic interact with a load balancer?
So traffic and your load balancer are going to do kind of two different things. Traffic is more about making sure in your development environment you're routing to the right containers when you have your defined DNS. You may be using that in a production depending on how you set it up, but your load balancer is more about looking for healthy things. In a production environment, you might just use your load balancer to do all of that. You typically wouldn't set up a load balancer in your dev environment though.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Jason, I'd love to hear from you. What use cases of Horizon are you seeing in the community?
Well, personally, I haven't seen a huge adoption in 9 because of the limited use cases it had. When you're looking at like one site and you don't have multilingual, you don't. It's kind of it was very much a hey, check out. It's kind of like a cool new UX and seeing where the direction of Sitecore was. So I don't think people were able to get the benefit out of what was in 9 to the extent that they needed, because most scenarios were introducing something that wasn't supported. So if you had very, very lightweight site, very simple, basic content, you could definitely handle it. So a single site scenario would work. With the 10.0 release, I think what we're looking at is people who are multilingual, multi-site, not necessarily SXA, probably a classic MVC site or something like that, who are having marketers that want a more modern UI, don't want to switch between experience editor, content editor, that type of model. I think that would be where you would be looking at it. I think as we go along, we'll address more and more use cases, but that would definitely be where I would see a strength of it right now.
Okay.
How's the excuse me? How's the new serialization in comparison to like Unicorn with working with items that might be versioned in a workflow? Because that was a kind of a limitation with Unicorn.
Yeah, I think it's very Unicorn similar in a lot of ways. Items in a workflow, like the serialization is like Sitecore Classic is like, you grab it out of there and then you push it in whatever state it is, right? So, but I think the intent was very much to go very basic. You're grabbing content, you're automating, you're pushing it as is across to the next and controlling what it is you want to pull in and out. And I think we'll see some changes over the course as people have different use cases that come up. I think folks who want more TDS-like functionality, that's why we still have TDS. They're going to maybe look towards that type of a model. There are a few functionality, but it's escaping my mind right now. There was something in Unicorn that isn't quite yet supported in the serialization tooling in Sitecore CLI, but might be coming in the future. I'm not sure. Right now, just priority decisions on there.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
There's also another question in the chat that says, can you elaborate what Sitecore for Visual Studio is? Oh, where'd the chat go? Is that a rebrand plus extension of TDS or a subset of features repackaged as a free offering or something else entirely?
Good question. It is something else entirely. So we have TDS, and that is a product, and it does its thing, and it has a whole bunch of features that's not in the Sitecore serialization. It's not just about content deploying, right? It does a bunch of other things. The Sitecore CLI is a free tool that does the serialization functionality. The Sitecore for Visual Studio is basically the same tool, but in the plugin. So it's not a rebrand. It's a plugin you put into Visual Studio. That's covered by your TDS license. So if you already have TDS, you can have Sitecore for Visual Studio. They kind of go together, but they're two different tools. The Sitecore CLI, however, is something that you can get. It's out of the box. You don't have to get anything extra, no licensing on that.
So this wouldn't be a replacement for Sitecore Rocks, right?
I think Rocks does even a different. Rocks was really built for a developer workflow, trying to like, go really quickly to define new things.
Gotcha.
And I don't think it's intended to do that. Like, I don't think it's intended for the same use case that a Rocks would do. It's definitely closer to content automation than it would be for content creation. You're not going to go pick like 100 things by a template using this tool.
It'd be nice to get some of the core functionality so that, you know, when I'm working with reports, I don't have to play around with Rocks, because I really don't like Rocks as much, but you kind of have to when you're playing with reports and, you know, the layouts.
Like doing speak type of stuff?
Yeah, that's kind of a limit. And I don't really like the tool, but it's kind of like you have to. So, I mean, that'd be like a good kind of, you know, if Sitecore could fix that, that'd be awesome.
Let me take down a note. This is the type of feedback that Nick Wesselman loves to hear. For those of you who don't know, Nick Wesselman is our product manager for developer experience. And one of the things that he does, amongst so many things, is Sitecore Rocks. So how do we get rid of Rocks, basically, especially with speak development? I think we need to solve that use case, but maybe getting rid of speak development is one of the ways to go about that, as opposed to having to build a tool that can do it. So I think that's—
Is that in talks of getting rid of speak?
Not right now, but I mean, if we start talking about how do we address the need that Rocks serves in terms of speak development, one of the options might be, well, how do we get rid of needing speak development instead of building a tool that does speak development? But right now, that's, you know, lots of different things in the fire. I don't think anybody wants to tackle that particular hedgehog yet.
Any other questions?
No, this is Lisa. I was just going to give a shout out. Once again, thank you guys for, you know, everybody joining in. And this is such a unique group to do this virtually, combining both the Cleveland and the Baltimore group. But if anybody would like to present the next time that we do this, we are always looking for presenters. I know I was messaging some folks and stuff. So if I didn't get to message you and welcome you to the group, you know, definitely take this as a good welcome, and reach out to Caitlin or myself, and let us know if you'd be interested in presenting the next user group.
Yeah, thanks everyone. I'll put my email in the chat too if you guys want to reach out or reach us on Meetup. But yeah, thank you guys again for attending, and thanks to Pushkar and Jason for presenting.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.